Let's talk about the multiplicative property of equality with decimals. So, multiplicative property of equality is just a fancy way of saying when I have an equation, two things on either side of an equals sign, I can multiply both sides by anything I want as long as I do it to both sides. So think about your equation as two sides that you always keep balanced. This is as if this was a balancing scale, and this side have to stay balanced. So my objective is to get y by itself. I want to know what y is, and in this case I have y divided by 3.2. Well, I want to get rid of that divided by 3.2. I don't really want it to be there. And so what I can do is I can multiply by 3.2 and it will cancel. If I multiply by 3.2, then I have that and that. If you want to, you could think about it as 3.2 over a 1. So you can think about that being in the top of a fraction. That will cancel out really nicely, and what I'll have left on this side of the equation is y. That's great, because that'll tell me exactly what y equals. It's reading it backwards, but it's still true. Now, the only problem with what I just did is I made my balance totally unequal. I just multiplied the entire right side times 3.2. Not okay. So I can remedy that by coming over here and multiplying the left-hand side by 3.2 also. So I need to do 3.2 times 2. I can do that like this if I want to. Remember, whenever I multiply and have a decimal involved, I just do the multiplication, and then I have to count how many decimal places were there total in my original numbers. Well, there was only one, so I'm going to start there, put that decimal in. So the answer here is 6.4 equals y. That means that if I plugged in 6.4 right there, I'd have 6.4 divided by 3.2, and that equals 2. That's a true statement. I'm going to ask for another one here. And I have v divided by 7, or equals 17.5. I just read that completely backwards, but that's fine. 17.5 equals v divided by 7. So think about your two sides of your equation. Keep your mind oriented to where your equal sign is. And over here I have v divided by 7. So I want to get rid of divided by 7, and so I'm always going to do the opposite. If it's dividing, I'm going to multiply. If it's multiplying, I'm going to divide. If it was adding, I would subtract, and if it was subtracting, I would add. So here, in this case, I'm going to go times 7. If you want to think about 7 over 1, you can. What happens there is the 7's cancel, and I will have v by itself, which is fantastic, except for the fact that my other side of the equation is now totally unbalanced. So I need to go over here and go times 7. So I need to do this math. 17.5 times 7. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 7 is 49, 50, 51, 52. Carry a 5. 7 times 1 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12. All right, so I look up in my original numbers, and I do have one place that is behind the decimal mark there. So I start over here, and I go like that, one place, and that will be my answer. 122.5 equals v. Does that make sense? 17.5 equals 122.5 divided by 7. That seems reasonable. Here's just one more that doesn't have dividing by to start with. It has multiplying. So in this case, I'm starting with 3.75 equals 3 times v. Whenever we don't have a sign between the numbers, it means times. So the way to get rid of something that is multiplication is to divide. The opposite of multiplication is division, and that's awesome. When I do 3 divided by 3, it's just going to make 1s, right? And so I'm going to cancel out everything except the v. That's my primary objective. I want to know what v equals, And so that setup will work, except that I have now made the right-hand side completely messed up, so I need to be fair and equal and divide by 3 on that side also. So I'm going to need to do this math however I want to do it. In this case, I'm going to say 3 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. That's going to make a 0. That's cool. I'm going to bring down the 7. 3 goes into 7 2 times. 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm going to bring down the 5. 3 does go into 15 evenly. 5 times 3 times 5 is 15. That makes 0. So the answer is going to be 1.25. Does that make sense? 3.75 equals 3 times 1.25. Yes, so V does equal 1.25.